Hello, Namaskar. This is First Post and you're watching Vantage with me, Palki Sharma. It's like Donald Trump wakes up and chooses war every day. The latest target is the ICC, that's the International Criminal Court. Trump has sanctioned it, saying it is anti-US and anti-Israel. Now, the ICC has a lot of problems, but not the ones that Trump is complaining about. We'll discuss that. Meanwhile, his best buddy Elon Musk is slipping in popularity among Republicans, and the Democrats are upset about his conflicts of interest. We'll tell you what the White House says. In India, the central bank has cut interest rates for the first time in 5 years. We'll discuss what that means for you. The Defense Ministry of India has scrapped drone deals over the presence of Chinese parts in the drones. Also in focus, how Trump's deportation drive has hit Indian students who are in the US legally. How India is trying to get fifth-generation fighter jets. Why a top economist says Bitcoin will go bust. Where India ranks in the Global AI Leadership Index, how space changes the human body, raising concerns about travel to Mars, and how Greece has declared an emergency after 8,000 earthquakes shook the island of Santorini in the last 1 week. All this and more coming up. The headlines first. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi to meet US President Donald Trump next week. He will be visiting Washington on the 12th and 13th of February. Prime Minister Modi will be among the first world leaders to meet Trump after his inauguration last month. The focus of the visit will be on trade, defense, and strategic cooperation. Iran's supreme leader warns against negotiating with the US just days after Donald Trump called for a new nuclear deal. In 2018, the US under Trump withdrew from a nuclear pact with Iran. Tehran claims its nuclear program is for peaceful purposes only and not to develop atomic weapons. India summons Bangladesh's acting High Commissioner after Dhaka lodged a protest over Sheikh Hasina's speech and even blamed India for it. New Delhi expresses concern over Bangladesh's negative remarks about India. Ties between the two countries have been strained since Sheikh Hasina fled to India in August last year. Sweden to limit access to weapons after the country's worst mass shooting this week. Stockholm will introduce a bill that will restrict access to semi-automatic guns. On Tuesday, a gunman killed 10 people at an education center. Several weapons and empty magazines were recovered from the crime scene. South Africa will not be bullied, says President Cyril Ramaphosa after the US president criticized his government. Donald Trump claimed that South Africa is confiscating the land of some people and threatened to cut funding to the country. Ramaphosa's government has denied the accusation and called it misinformation. And FIFA suspends Pakistan's Football Federation, the Congo Republic's Football Association, over governance and failing to implement reforms. The World Football Body has suspended Pakistan in 2017 and 2021 as well. Another day, another fight for President Donald Trump, this time with the ICC, that's the International Criminal Court. This is a global judicial body. It investigates the worst crimes of the world, like war crimes or genocide or forced starvation. Sounds like the good fight, but Trump is against them. He has announced sanctions on members of this court. Their names are yet to be revealed, but the impact will be massive. No travel to the United States, no access to US assets, and no financial transactions to America. That will be the impact of this move. But why is Trump doing it? Let me quote the White House statement. This is what it says. The ICC has engaged in illegitimate and baseless actions targeting America and our close ally Israel. The ICC has, without a legitimate basis, asserted jurisdiction over and opened preliminary investigations concerning personnel of the United States. Let me simplify that for you. Trump says the ICC is unfairly targeting the US and Israel, though they have no legal basis to do so. You see, the ICC's powers come from a global treaty, the Rome Statute of 1998. If you sign that statute, you accept the ICC's jurisdiction. If not, you're not bound by the court. More than 120 countries in the world have signed the Rome Statute, but a lot of big powers have not. The United States, Israel, Russia, China, even India, these countries do not accept the International Criminal Court. The court can still probe these countries, but they're not bound by the findings or judgments. They can simply ignore it. Which brings us back to Donald Trump. He's not the kind to ignore anything. His issue with the ICC dates back to his first term. In 2020, Trump sanctioned officials of the ICC. The reason? The court was probing US war crimes in Afghanistan. This time, the US is not in the dock, but Trump's ally Benjamin Netanyahu is. ICC prosecutors have accused him of war crimes. They've also secured a warrant for his arrest. Hence the decision to sanction the court. The question is, what happens next? Israel has naturally welcomed Trump's move, but most of Europe is against it. The European Union has released a statement. It says Trump is undermining the international criminal justice system. Germany's Olaf Scholz calls it a wrong decision.
I don't think it's right to impose sanctions on the International Criminal Court. It's so difficult to fight for it to enjoy a reputation and respect. And of course it's perfectly all right to get angry about things, to argue, to stand up in court with your own positions. But sanctions are the wrong thing to do. They are jeopardizing an institution that is supposed to ensure that the dictators of this world cannot simply persecute people and start wars.
The ICC has also condemned it. They are promising to stand by their officials. They've also said that their work will continue. Now let's zoom out for a moment, away from the politics and the reactions. How will this affect our world? Are agencies like the ICC required? For starters, this is not an isolated move. Donald Trump has pulled out of multiple treaties and agencies, like the Paris Climate Accords, the World Health Organization, the UN Human Rights Council, and the UN Aid Agency for Palestine. He's walked out of all of these. He says these bodies are all anti-American, and it is part of Trump's new isolationism. No to global agencies, yes to invading neighbors and occupying Gaza. That's what he's doing. Now, this selective isolationism will have consequences, especially on funding. The US is the biggest contributor to the United Nations. They make up 22% of the overall budget, 27% of the peacekeeping budget, and 47% of the population fund programs. These focus on childbirth and reproductive health. If the US leaves these programs, the funding gap will be huge. We will need other states to step up. Plus, there will be a political vacuum. China is already trying to hijack United Nations institutions. This is the perfect chance for them. So Trump's actions will have real-world consequences. Which brings us to the second question. Are agencies like the ICC necessary? Well, they're not perfect, but not in the way that Trump claims. The ICC mostly focused on the third world, or focuses on the third world. They have ignored crimes committed by the West. Let me show you some numbers. Until April 2024, the ICC has indicted 54 people. 47 of them, 47 out of 54, were African. That's 87% of the indictments from one continent. And we are not saying ignore crimes in Africa, but focus on Western crimes as well. Look at what the ICC did to the United Kingdom. They found evidence that British troops committed war crimes in Iraq. The UK is also a member of the ICC, so the court did have jurisdiction on them. Yet the case was dropped. Same with Australia. Their soldiers were found guilty of war crimes in Afghanistan. Their commanders were stripped of their medals. Yet, the International Criminal Court did not probe them. If this is not a double standard, I wonder what is. So Trump is right in saying that the ICC is broken, but America is not the victim here. They have benefited from the ICC's bias. If not, most of the living US presidents would be in jail. So it's important to reform these bodies in the right way to make meaningful and just changes.
Take over, Elon, yes, take over.
Impeach Trump! Arrest Elon Musk! Arrest Elon Musk! Trump! No KKK, no fascist USA! No Trump! No KKK, no fascist USA!
What is conflict of interest? It is when professional duties get tangled up with personal gains. For most people, it is a red flag, but for Elon Musk, it is just another Thursday. The world's richest man is steering DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency. It is not a government department. Musk was not confirmed by the US Senate. He does not hold an official post. But Elon Musk and his team are tearing up US government contracts. They're cutting federal spending. Why is this a problem? Because Elon Musk himself owns 7 companies. Most of them have government contracts. These are contracts worth around $16 billion. And that means Musk's involvement is a clear conflict of interest. He is the one deciding who gets dropped. He decides who loses their contract. And as a businessman, would he ever scrap his own contracts? So the White House was asked about this, about Musk's conflict of interest, and this is what they had to say.
The President was already asked and answered this question this week, and he said if Elon Musk comes across a conflict of interest with the contracts and the funding that DOGE is overseeing, then Elon will excuse himself from those contracts. And he has, again, abided by all applicable laws.
Well, how convenient is that? There's a conflict of interest involving Elon Musk, and who is monitoring him? Elon Musk himself. Looks like the first buddy can do no wrong. But the thing is, Musk is officially a special government employee. At least that's what the White House says. And that means that he is bound by rules, by ethics rules. Rules that this situation clearly violates. Let's look at the numbers. Tesla landed over $350,000 in government contracts last year. SpaceX has multiple contracts worth over $15 billion. So when Elon Musk slashes federal spending, is he really cutting waste, or is he just cutting competition? Guess we'll never know, but the Democrats are already up in arms.
Elon Musk has absolutely no business handling the personal information of American taxpayers, period. For an unelected billionaire to have full access to Americans' personal tax and Social Security information is not only an egregious violation of privacy, but it is illegal under Section 6103 of the Internal Revenue Code.
Constitutional overreach or violation of the law? Take your pick. What I know for sure is that my constituents are upset.
So the Democrats are not happy. What about the Republicans? Well, turns out they're not thrilled either. A new survey shows how quickly things have shifted. In November, 47% Republicans wanted Musk to have a lot of influence in the government, 29% wanted him to have a little influence, and 12% did not want him at all. And this was 2 months ago, November 2024. Now, a new survey has been conducted, and look at how the sentiment has shifted in this time. Now, only 26% Republicans want Elon Musk to have a lot of influence, 43% want a little influence, and 17% want him out. They're raising red flags over the influence of Musk and DOGE, over conflicts of interest, over access to classified information, Musk's billionaire status, and the overall overreach. Looks like his political stock is not just dropping, it is crashing. And he isn't the only problem here. it's also the team that he's hired. DOGE is led by a group of 19 to 26-year-olds. Most of them are coders and engineers. Half of them do not have a formal degree. All of them have no bureaucratic experience, and some even have a shady past. Like 25-year-old Marco Elez. He was working at the Treasury Department, leading DOGE's efforts to cut costs there. But a number of his old posts have now resurfaced. Let me read out some of them for you. This is what he wrote. You could not pay me to marry outside of my ethnicity. Another post says, normalize Indian hate. We've got one more. Just for the record, I was racist before it was cool. All these posts have now been deleted, and Elez has resigned from DOGE. But the posts are revealing, and the damage is done. Elon Musk staffer was racist. And if this is the kind of team that he has built to overhaul the US government, then the issue is clearly bigger than conflict of interest. It's also about what kind of people have been trusted with this power. Here's a billionaire with government contracts running an operation with no oversight and a team that has racist members and no experience. I guess at some point the United States has to ask the tough question. Having a watchdog is great, but who is watching that watchdog? Let's turn to India now, where the Reserve Bank announced a major move today. It has decided to cut interest rates to boost growth. And that too for the first time in 5 years. The decision was announced by Governor Sanjay Malhotra. He took charge in mid-December. So this was his first policy announcement. Most experts were expecting a 25 basis points cut, and that's what the RBI, or India Central Bank, delivered. They have reduced lending rates from 6.5% to 6.25%. But the RBI governor also had a warning. Global headwinds are worsening.
Accordingly, the MPC decided to reduce the policy rate, by 25 basis points to 6.25%. At the same time, the MPC felt that excessive volatility in global financial markets and continued uncertainties about global trade policies, coupled with adverse weather events, pose risks to the growth and inflation outlook.
This rate cut comes after a long time. The last one was in May 2020. After that, we had lockdowns, rising inflation, and a GDP slowdown. So the RBI was pretty cautious. They kept the interest rate steady since 2023. Then why the cut now? And how will it impact your loans? Let's look at the impact first. The RBI has cut the repo rate today. The repo rate is the rate at which they, the RBI, lend to commercial banks. Lower repo rate equals cheaper loans for banks, and cheaper loans for banks equals cheaper loans for you. That is the chain reaction. And this is good news for new buyers. If you're looking for a home loan, now could be the time, because the EMI rates will be dropping. Let me explain that. Say you're taking a loan worth 50 lakh rupees. The repayment time is 30 years. Let's assume the old interest rate was 8.75%. Then your EMI was 39,335 rupees. That's how much you had to pay every month. Now cut 25 basis points from this rate. Your new interest rate will be 8.5%, and your new EMI will be 38,446 rupees. That's a drop of 2.2%, although not everyone will get this relief. Your loan must have a floating interest rate. If it does, you have two options. You can either pay lower EMIs per month, or you can reduce the tenure of the loan. Meaning you pay the same EMI but for fewer months, not the full 30-year period. A lot of experts say that the second option is better. It is better to cut the loan tenure. But do consult with your financial advisor before you take the call. Which brings us to the final question. Why the rate cut now? To combat the economic slowdown. India's recent GDP numbers have failed to impress. In the second quarter of this year, growth was just 5.4%. The year before, it was 8.1%. Overall, this year's growth is projected to be 6.4%, again down from 8.2% last year. A big reason for this is household consumption. Simply put, Indians are not spending enough, and the goal is to change that. And we saw that in the union budget last week as well. The government gave tax relief to the middle class. Income up to 12 lakh rupees is now tax-free. The aim is to put more money in people's pockets. The RBI rate cut has a similar goal. If you reduce interest rates, loans become cheaper. And if loans become cheaper, you're more likely to take one. And more loans equals more spending. That's what the RBI is hoping for. But of course, there's an obvious risk. More spending also leads to rising prices. In other words, inflation. And the RBI is aware of this problem, which is why the governor maintained his neutral stance.
The MPC also decided unanimously again to continue with the neutral stance and remain unambiguously focused on a durable alignment of inflation with the target while supporting growth.
Neutral stance is basically wait and watch. The bank will not commit to any future courses of action, the Central Bank of India, neither rate cuts nor rate increases. They want to see how things play out before they decide. And the markets also had a muted reaction today. Normally, they cheer rate cuts, but the Sensex dropped almost 200 points today. One reason is because the markets anticipated these cuts, so the change was already accounted for. Another reason is global headwinds. With President Donald Trump in the White House, nothing is certain. He's imposing tariffs on allies and neighbors, so India cannot rest easy. These are certainly challenging times to lead a central bank, especially in a major economy like India. By cutting interest rates, the Reserve Bank has sent a bold message. Let's see what happens next.
With the numbers that the poll of poll predictions are, let's start with those numbers, because the exit pollsters have said that Delhi mein hawa badal rahi hai, and that there will not be Arvind Kejriwal as Chief Minister. There may not be an Aam Aadmi Party too, because most of the pollsters have come out and said that there is a clear shift in the voter perception with the Aam Aadmi Party over the last 10 to 12 years, and it's the BJP that could break nearly 30-year jinx and come back to power in Delhi, the state Vidhan Sabha of Delhi, for the first time since 1998. So what is the overall poll of poll numbers? Once we take a look at most of them, look at today's Chanakya and Axis India. Both of them have said 50 par hai. Why? Because their thought process is if there is a 5% difference in vote share, then it will be a nearly sweep election. It will be a wave against the AAP for the BJP. It's more an anti-AAP vote. The projection as of now is that the BJP plus in Delhi Vidhan Sabha will get around 43 seats. So 40 plus seats so guaranteed hai. Some of the pollsters are saying 50 bhi touch kar sakta hai. There are some who believe the AAP is in with a chance, but they may fall at least 8 short of the halfway number. The AAP may still get about 27 seats as per the overall pollsters. It's a complete rout. They may get to single digit or less than 20 seats. No, but it's a clear slide from 62 in 2020 to 27 in 2025 as per the pollsters. Zaka Jacob with us here in the studio, Pallavi Ghosh, Aman Sharma and Ravi Srivastav also joins us. Zaka, even as the Netaji departs, thank you Ji. I'll come back to you and we'll get you more numbers in just a bit. But first, Zaka, are you surprised with these numbers? Could there be a twist in the tail? Are there a certain group of voters who may perhaps have a different mind of their own?
Well, there could be a group of voters who are not speaking to the exit pollsters, who may be suspicious of the exit pollsters. But if you look at the chart that you had just put out, at the higher end, like you said, both Axis India and today's Chanakya, 50 or 51, around there is the range that they're giving to the BJP. At the lowest end for the BJP, of course, if we were to take away the We Preside poll, which is the only poll which is suggesting an AAP victory, all the other polls are saying it's a BJP victory. At the lowest end, they're predicting 31. So it's between a 30 and a 50 range as far as the BJP is concerned. For the Aam Aadmi Party, the lowest is 10, which CNX is predicting.
and the highest, of course, again I'm taking out the We Preside poll. If you were to take the We Preside poll out, I think the highest would be 33 to 38, which Xenia is giving. It's similar to what the Matriz poll is also giving, 32 to 37. I think one thing is clear. The third party is not opening its account, or it's barely opening its account. So the Congress was not much of a factor. Certainly it was seemingly a two-horse race between the AAP and the BJP. The others also not opening their account. If it's a two-horse race, if it's a direct choice before the people of Delhi, Party A or Party B, I think it will be a decisive verdict. You will not get a hung assembly. You will get a decisive verdict, and dare I say, you will get a pretty definitive, almost wave-like verdict. That is how historically elections have been. Whether there will be a surprise on the 8th, we don't know. But as we bring in our guest, have I spoken too soon, Rahul Shivshankar?
You've got certainly a very long neck.
What is the RSS thinking? No pun is intended.
Very, very long neck you've got. I hope there's a block that big. No. But look, I really feel that this is actually a two-horse race. The Congress might end up only in a few seats damaging the AAP, but fundamentally this is a two-horse race, and it all will come down to the women voter and the lowest of the lowest classes who are concentrated in northeastern Delhi. I think they hold the key. The middle class, I don't know how much of a factor it is. It might have sort of swayed to the BJP. At least some of these polls seem to be suggesting that, but I think there's a huge amount at stake. So without getting into predicting what's going to happen in an hour or so, I just feel that there's a huge amount at stake. The BJP has never been called an underdog in any Hindi heartland state except for in Delhi and to some extent in Jharkhand. Okay, here they go in as underdogs. Can you imagine? In the capital of this country, that in Lok Sabha election after Lok Sabha election, and
our next story is about defense, about India's drive to mobilize drones at the border. This drive has hit a snag. India's defense ministry has had to cancel a deal. Reports say it was an order for 400 drones. That order has been cancelled. The reason? The drones were found to contain Chinese parts. Let's look at the details. Here's what we know. 400 drone deliveries were reportedly cancelled. They were all logistics drones. These are usually the quadcopter kind, like the ones used by Amazon and other e-commerce platforms to make drone deliveries. As the name suggests, they're used for logistical support, to fly things like ammunition, medicine and other supplies to remote areas. Now, in India's case, the drones were meant for operations along the LAC, the line of actual control, the de facto border between India and China. Now, what's the bare minimum you would expect here? Knowing that these drones were heading to the India-China border, they should be China-proof, right? The drones should not have any vulnerabilities to Chinese hacking. That is the minimum expectation. But unfortunately, the exact opposite happened. India discovered that these drones contained Chinese components, potentially giving Beijing a backdoor into the drones. And here's how the vulnerability was discovered. India has been buying logistics drones for a while now. One supplier is a Chennai-based firm called Dhaksha Unmanned Systems. It has supplied drones in the past. Their previous batch has been in use, but 2 incidents took place last year. The first was at the LAC in eastern Ladakh. One drone refused to take off. That was the first incident. The Indian Armed Forces assumed that it was a malfunction, but they investigated it. Then a second incident took place last August. This was along the India-Pakistan border in the Rajouri sector. The Indian Army lost control of one of the drones. It flew off into Pakistan-occupied Kashmir, and the Indian forces could not explain it. That is when a crackdown on the drones began. India put on hold acquisitions from Daksha unmanned systems to investigate its supply chains. And now it seems that 3 orders have been cancelled, plus India's Defence Ministry is updating its security procedures. A stringent mechanism is reportedly being put in place to ensure that no Chinese components or electronics are used. Remember, India already has a domestic requirement for drones. The manufacturers have to be Indian entities, and they are given preference based on the amount of indigenous components used. However, there is still some scope for foreign components, and this loophole seems to have been exploited. Indian firms using Chinese drone components is inexcusable. We've had directives in place for this since the year 2010 about Chinese parts in Indian security equipment. But the global drone sector is heavily reliant on China. Beijing controls 90% of the world's commercial drone supplies, 90%, and 70% is controlled by a single Chinese company, SZDJI Technology Co. Limited, or simply known as DJI. They control 70% of the global commercial drone market. Parts, electronics, engines, you name it, they sell all of it. And with such dominance, the cost advantage is tangible, so firms tend to opt for Chinese parts. But India should have zero tolerance for this. Despite all the talk of normalizing ties and resuming flights, this is defense. It should be non-negotiable. You cannot allow a potential enemy state to have a backdoor into your equipment. Hopefully, India's private defense manufacturers understand this, and this debacle is not repeated. In the United States, Donald Trump's deportation drive is in full swing. We've told you how he is dispatching military jets, repatriating undocumented immigrants to their home countries. India received one of these military jets this week, carrying 104 Indian citizens. Their condition has become a political flashpoint because the Indians were returned in chains. New Delhi has raised this with the US, but there's already another issue that is brewing, that of legal Indian immigrants facing additional scrutiny, especially students who are in the US on valid visas. Reports say these students are also getting swept up in Trump's deportation drive. They're facing additional checks from US authorities, and any misstep could lead to their ouster as well. Our next report has more.
How does someone identify an undocumented immigrant? What sets them apart from people who enter a country legally? Often, it's just their documents. A legal migrant from India won't look very different from an illegal one. So, how are US authorities separating the two groups? Apparently, they are targeting everyone. Anyone who looks different is at risk. This includes students from India, people who painstakingly got admission into an American university, who paid their dues and received a coveted F1 visa, allowing them to enter the US as a full-time student and try and achieve the American dream the right way. These students are facing a crackdown. They are now subject to intense scrutiny by agents from the US Immigration and Customs Enforcement, or ICE, or from US Customs and Border Protection, USBP. Reports have started coming in about how Donald Trump's deportation drive is putting pressure on Indian students. The students all have similar complaints. Uniformed officers have started stopping them more often, demanding their documents like their student IDs, and the checks seem targeted. They aren't taking place near college campuses. They are taking place at grocery stores, gas stations, and restaurants, the places students go to work part-time jobs. Therein lies the dilemma. Most students are in the US on an F1 visa. They are only allowed to work for 20 hours a week, that too just on-campus jobs. But living expenses are high in the US, so students often take other part-time work to pay the bills. Strictly speaking, this is illegal. it could be used as an excuse to deport the students. So, the fresh vigor of the raids by US authorities raises some questions. Is Trump's deportation drive really looking to target hardened criminals, the worst of the worst, sent to the US from prisons or mental asylums? Because that is what Trump had claimed before winning the presidency. He said that he would start deporting criminals from day one. So, are all of them out of the US already?
And we will begin the largest deportation operation in the history of the United States.
Is that why his ICE agents are now shaking down Indians at grocery stores? Are Indian students, who are trying to make ends meet, the worst criminals left in the US? Or is Trump's deportation drive taking a different turn? An overtly racist one, where everyone who looks different is a target. It seems that US officials are looking for any excuse to round up people and deport them. What other explanation is there for interrogating teenagers working part-time at a restaurant? Because this is not targeting illegal migrants, but harassing the legal ones who are simply chasing the American dream.
Modern wars are fought on multiple fronts, on your computers, on your power grids, and of course on the ground. But many experts rank one front ahead of all others, and that's the air. Air supremacy is central to modern wars. But is India ready for it? Look at what happened on Thursday. An Indian Air Force jet crashed in the state of Madhya Pradesh, a Mirage 2000 fighter plane. Thankfully, both pilots ejected in time. They have escaped with minor injuries. But what led to this crash? The Air Force says a systems malfunction. They have ordered an investigation into the crash. Hopefully, that will give us more details. But here's what we do know. The Mirages are part of an aging Indian fleet. They were manufactured by French company Dassault. India bought 51 of them back in 1985. So these jets have been flying for 40 years now. What's more, India bought them off the rack, meaning no production or repair facilities were set up in India. As a result, maintenance is hard. In 2021, India bought 24 retired Mirages from France, not to fly them, but to use them for spare parts. And we are considering similar deals with Greece and Qatar. The hope is to somehow extend the lifespan of the Mirages. The goal was to retire them by 2030, but now they're expected to fly into the 2040s. And why is that? Because replacements are not ready. We are already phasing out old Soviet jets, so we cannot retire the Mirages yet. The numbers won't allow it. The Indian Air Force has a sanctioned squadron strength of 42. But we have only 31 up and running. And each squadron has around 18 fighter jets, so you can do the math. And that's one big challenge for India's Air Force, to expand our fleet of jets. Even the Air Force chief flagged it recently. He lamented the delay in India's homegrown fighter jet program.
First aircraft flew in 2001, 17 years. Then the induction started another 15 years later. 2016. Today we are in 2024. I do not have the first 40 aircraft also. So this is the production capability.
So quantity is one problem, but so is quality. China already has a 5th generation fighter jet. Recently they debuted a 6th generation jet as well, a futuristic stealth plane. India's other rival, Pakistan, is expanding its fleet. Reports say they will buy 5th gen planes from China. Is India prepared to tackle this challenge? As of today, our most advanced planes are the French Rafales. They are 4.5 generation jets. India is also developing a 5th gen fighter, but it won't be ready before 2035, so another 10 years. So what is the solution? Perhaps to buy foreign fighter jets. The Chinese 5th generation plane is obviously off the table, so that leaves two options: America's F-35 and the Russian Su-57. The Russian plane, in fact, landed in India yesterday. It will take part in the Bengaluru Air Show next week, and this is very significant because Russia rarely showcases the Su-57. Its first foreign appearance was in China last year, and the second is now in India. And the Russians are willing to sell. Let me quote from their statement. Among our proposals are the supply of ready-made aircraft, the organization of their joint production in India, as well as assistance in the development of an Indian fifth-generation fighter. That's what Russia is offering. It is a pretty comprehensive offer. But will India take it up? Well, the Russian president is expected to visit soon. If India is keen, that's the time to strike a deal. And what about the F-35, the American jet? It was supposed to come for the Bengaluru Air Show, but the US Air Force has pulled out. And we know the Americans are very picky about jet sales. They have denied the F-35 to even NATO allies like Turkey. Plus, the India-US defense cooperation is still new. We've seen some big headlines recently, but the outcomes are not that impressive. Just consider the jet engine deal. In 2021, India bought 99 jet engines from the United States. The delivery was supposed to start in April 2023, but not a single one has reached India yet. We're in 2025. That's almost a 2-year delay. Both Prime Minister Narendra Modi and the Defence Minister of India have flagged this delay. So now the US is speeding it up. They say deliveries will begin in March or April this year. And those engines will power India's homegrown Tejas jet. So until we get them, those planes cannot be delivered. Do you see the problem here? Defense supplies require trust and reliability. Russia has historically checked both these boxes. So looks like India is going the tried and tested route. Will Bitcoin go bust? I'm not the one asking this, but a Nobel-winning economist is. His name is Eugene F. Farmer. He's often called the father of finance. His theories have shaped how we understand markets today, and now he's making a bold prediction that Bitcoin is doomed. Not immediately, but within a decade, he believes it could collapse entirely. Why? Because according to Farmer, Bitcoin breaks the fundamental rules of money. It lacks intrinsic value. And most importantly, it does not function as a stable medium of exchange. In his view, that makes it unsustainable in the long run. So is Farmer's assessment right? Or is Bitcoin proving traditional economists wrong, one rally at a time? Our next report tells you.
December 2024 was a massive month for Bitcoin. Its market capitalization soared past $2 trillion, bigger than Meta and Tesla. Fueling this rally was a pro-crypto president. Donald Trump was heading back to the White House, so Bitcoin shattered records. It even crossed $100,000 for the first time. But this Thursday came a sharp reality check. Bitcoin plunged down 9% in a single day. A reminder of just how wild this market can be. Now, a Nobel-winning economist has made a bold prediction. His name is Eugene Farmer. He says Bitcoin is doomed, not today, not tomorrow, but within the next decade. He believes it will collapse. Why does Farmer think so? It's because Bitcoin violates all rules of exchange. They have no real stable value, and that's why it can't survive. Now, this isn't the first time this has been said. The idea of Bitcoin was born in 2008. It was by an anonymous person going by the name Satoshi Nakamoto. The idea was to create a decentralized digital currency. The transaction would happen directly from user to user. There would be no middleman, no banks, no governments. The first Bitcoin was launched in 2009. In the beginning, Bitcoin was restricted to the realm of tech enthusiasts. One Bitcoin was worth mere cents. There were some highs, even some terrible lows in 2023. But 2024 was a good year so far. On January 1st, 2024, Bitcoin was worth $43,000. In December 2024, it was worth $103,000. That's a rise of over 130%. Most of which was fueled by just one election, which saw Donald Trump returning to the White House. He promised a pro-crypto approach and vowed to make the United States the crypto capital of the world. And it's not just the United States. More and more countries are embracing Bitcoin. El Salvador has made Bitcoin legal tender. Japan has recognized it as legitimate property. Dubai has created crypto economic zones. So does that make Bitcoin a mainstream asset? Eugene Farmer definitely doesn't think so. He believes cryptocurrencies are a puzzle. And he's not wrong. Right now, Bitcoin has two major problems. The first is regulation. How do you control something designed to be uncontrollable? It's a problem that governments worldwide are facing. Some have tried a middle path, like a Bitcoin ETF. ETF stands for Exchange Traded Fund. It's like owning a Bitcoin, but through a surrogate. The other problem is volatility. Bitcoin is $97,000 today. Tomorrow, it could be down to $10,000 and you'll be able to do nothing. Now, price volatility happens with any stock, but cryptocurrency is especially volatile. It's heavily influenced by speculative trading and given to sharp price swings. So, is Bitcoin the future of finance or just a ticking time bomb? Its rise has been spectacular, but its risks are undeniable. Regulators are scrambling, investors are debating, and economists like Eugene Farmer are sounding the alarm. Its future may be uncertain, but one thing is certain: Bitcoin isn't going away quietly.
Next Monday will be a busy one for Paris. It is hosting the Artificial Intelligence Action Summit. France is the main host, India is co-chairing the event, and it's going to be a grand affair. World leaders, tech bosses, experts, journalists, activists, representatives from over 80 countries will be present. And what's on the agenda? To discuss the future of AI, the good, the bad, and the ugly. This Paris summit is the third edition. The first one was held in the UK, the second one was in South Korea, and this time the stakes are higher. The focus will be on regulating artificial intelligence, fostering innovation, and shaping a future where AI benefits all. But who will lead the conversation? Let's show you this report, the latest Global AI Vibrancy Ranking. It shows where nations stand in the AI race. And a disclaimer here, this is based on data collected up to 2023. Obviously, a lot has changed since then. But let's take a look at who's on top and where does India stand. Topping the list is the United States of America. It dominates across multiple dimensions. The US leads in high-quality research, the production of cutting-edge machine learning models, and private investment inflows. Silicon Valley still remains the epicenter of AI innovation. They have a thriving startup ecosystem. According to the report, the US has a score of 70.06. But the lead is not unchallenged. There are concerns about data privacy and ethical implementation. Also, let's not forget about DeepSeek. It came towards the end of 2024 and it has challenged American hegemony since then. All of that is not reflected in these rankings. Nonetheless, China is second on the list. It has positioned itself as the fiercest competitor to the United States, but with a very different approach. China is all about state-backed initiatives. It leads the world in AI patent filings. It is also closing the gap in machine learning model production, so Beijing may lack in academic openness, but it makes up for it with scale and efficiency. Number 3 is the UK. I'm not quite sure why. And on the 4th position is India, a surprise contender in AI development. India has a young tech-savvy population and a booming AI sector and a booming IT sector. The country has positioned itself as an AI hub, both in innovation and deployment. Indian startups are attracting investors. The government is focusing on AI policy and also on data centers. Data centers are basically facilities to store, manage, and process large amounts of data. Data centers are the backbone of the AI economy. So India wants to capitalize on that. But it also has its own set of challenges. There are infrastructure gaps, low research funding, compared to the US and China, of course, and brain drain of the top AI talent from India. If India can overcome all these obstacles, it may establish itself as the next AI powerhouse. The future does look promising. There are also other emerging players like Europe, the United Arab Emirates, and Asian countries like South Korea, Japan, and Singapore. And let me also add here, the global AI race is not just a tech contest anymore. It is a defining geopolitical contest. The battle for AI supremacy is no longer just about who builds the best models. It's about who sets the rules, who controls the data, and who defines the ethics of an AI-driven world. As world leaders come together in Paris next week, they should deliberate on all these questions of who will shape the future of AI. The US may be ahead, but China's aggressive expansion, India's concerted push, and Europe's regulatory approach suggest that the AI order of tomorrow will be a multipolar one. Picture this. You are in space. It is exciting and fun, but wait for it. Soon your head swells, your heart shrinks, your legs atrophy, your DNA changes, and you get the space stupids, basically brain fog. Doesn't sound all that fun now, does it? And it gets worse. A new study is out. It says that space even makes you go blind. You see, the human body did not evolve to live in space. It is an alien environment for us, so it changes our bodies. And this could spell trouble for future missions, like missions to Mars, which will be longer and deeper into space. So is there a way out? Is it safe for humans to go to Mars? And why does outer space change the human body? Our next report tells you.
Humans are increasingly exploring worlds beyond Earth, and they are setting their eyes on Mars. These will be longer missions, millions of kilometers away from home, with delayed communications, a lack of gravity, and exposure to radiation. So, before they go, scientists are trying to understand as much as possible about what this would do to their bodies. A new study is out. It says that 70% of astronauts who spent at least 6 months on the International Space Station experience major changes in their vision. But this is not news. In fact, 2 decades ago, when astronaut John Phillips went to the ISS, he was launched with a 20/20 vision. He was on the space station for about 6 months, but when he returned, his vision was down to 2100. Not everyone experiences such a severe change, but almost everyone witnesses a version of this condition. A typical human body is about 60% water. On Earth, gravity pulls the fluids down into the body, but space is zero gravity. So, in the free fall, the body's fluids float upwards. About 2 liters of fluids gather in the head, applying pressure on the eyeballs and squishing them over time. This can swell the optic nerve, flatten the back of the eye, cause blurry vision, and a range of other eye problems. Vision issues are considered one of the riskiest medical problems affecting astronauts. But these aren't the only problems. Even though weight means very little in zero gravity, astronauts find it difficult to maintain it in space. And without the constant tug of gravity, muscle and bone mass begin to diminish, especially because they are not used enough. We are seeing this with NASA astronaut Sunita Williams, who has been stuck in space for about 8 months now. She claims to have forgotten how to walk. That's because muscles no longer have to put in the work that they usually do, so they begin to atrophy. After just 2 weeks, muscle mass falls by 20%. And bones lose about 2% of their mass with every month spent in space. This increases the risk of injuries and fractures. While these problems can be easily seen, there are changes inside the body as well, like in the gut. Our guts have friendly bacteria and fungi that help the digestion process. Being in space increases inflammation in the body and alters the gut biome. Even the human genes are affected, because radiation in space can damage DNA. And apart from the body, the mind is also at risk. Space can do strange things to it, from feelings of disorientation, to mood swings, to warped thinking. These are often called space stupids. So there are mind-bending consequences to staying in space. Scientists fear that it could put future missions in jeopardy. As countries are planning to send crews deeper into the solar systems, they have to be careful about the seen and unseen problems that may come with it. For instance, a return journey to Mars is expected to take 1,100 days. The record for a single trip into space currently stands at 437 days. So a trip to Mars is more than double of that. So scientists are scrambling to design procedures and devices that will keep astronauts safe and healthy in deep space. There's a lot of work to be done, but hopefully the result will be out of this world.
With the numbers that the poll of poll predictions are, let's start with those numbers, because the exit pollsters have said that Delhi mein hawa badal rahi hai, and that there will not be Arvind Kejriwal as chief minister. There may not be an Aam Aadmi party too, because most of the pollsters have come out and said that there is a clear shift in the voter perception with the Aam Aadmi party over the last 10 to 12 years, and it's the BJP that could break nearly 30-year jinx and come back to power in Delhi, the state Vidhan Sabha of Delhi, for the first time since 1998. So what is the overall poll of poll numbers? Once we take a look at most of them, look at today's Chanakya and Axis India, both of them have said 50 par hai. Why? Because their thought process is, if there is a 5% difference in vote share, then it will be a nearly sweep election. It will be a wave against the AAP for the BJP. It's more an anti-AAP vote. The projection as of now is that the BJP plus in Delhi Vidhan Sabha will get around 43 seats. So 40 plus seats so guaranteed hai. Some of the pollsters are saying 50 bhi touch kar sakta hai. There are some who believe the AAP is in with a chance, but they may fall at least 8 short of the halfway number. The AAP may still get about 27 seats as per the overall pollsters. It's a complete rout. They may get to single digit or less than 20 seats. No, but it's a clear slide from 62 in 2020 to 27 in 2025 as per the pollsters. Zaka Jacob with us here in the studio, Pallavi Ghosh, Aman Sharma and Ravi Srivastav also joins us. Zaka, even as the Netaji departs, thank you Ji. I'll come back to you and we'll get you more numbers in just a bit. But first, Zaka, are you surprised with these numbers? Could there be a twist in the tail? Are there a certain group of voters who may perhaps have a different mind of their own?
Well, there could be a group of voters who are not speaking to the exit pollsters, who may be suspicious of the exit pollsters. But if you look at the chart that you had just put out, at the higher end, like you said, both Axis India and today's Chanakya, 50 or 51, around there is the range that they're giving to the BJP. At the lowest end for the BJP, of course, if we were to take away the We Preside poll, which is the only poll which is suggesting an AAP victory, all the other polls are saying it's a BJP victory. At the lowest end, they're predicting 31. So it's between a 30 and a 50 range as far as the BJP is concerned. For the Aam Aadmi Party, the lowest is 10, which CNX is predicting, and the highest, of course, again, I'm taking out the We Preside poll. If you were to take the We Preside poll out, I think the highest would be 33 to 38, which Xenia is giving. It's similar to what the Matriz poll is also giving, 32 to 37. I think one thing is clear. The third party is not opening its account, or it's barely opening its account. So the Congress was not much of a factor. Certainly it was seemingly a two-horse race between the AAP and the BJP. The others also not opening their account. If it's a two-horse race, if it's a direct choice before the people of Delhi, Party A or Party B, I think it will be a decisive verdict. You will not get a hung assembly. You will get a decisive verdict, and dare I say, you will get a pretty definitive, almost wave-like verdict. That is how historically elections have been. Whether there will be a surprise on the 8th, we don't know. But as we bring in our guest, have I spoken too soon, Rahul Shivshankar?
You've got certainly a very long neck.
What is the RSS thinking? No pun is intended.
Very, very long neck you've got. I hope there's a block that big. No. But look, I really feel that this is actually a two-horse race. The Congress might end up only in a few seats damaging the AAP, but fundamentally this is a two-horse race, and it all will come down to the women voter and the lowest of the lowest classes who are concentrated in northeastern Delhi. I think they hold the key. The middle class, I don't know how.
Today marks the beginning of Valentine's Week, 7 days leading up to February 14th. Each day has a different meaning. Today is apparently Rose Day, tomorrow is Propose Day, and the day after is Chocolate Day. Unless, of course, you're a normal person, in which case it's Friday, Saturday and Sunday. The whole thing is quite commercialized. Couples may think they have aced Valentine's Week, but the real winner is Amazon, because that's inevitably where you buy gifts. Also, spare a thought for all those single people. They're done with the mocking and the trolling. So they're making memes in revenge. Take a look at this.
वैलेंटाइन डे से मेरा क्या लेना देना भाई, या मेरा ही लेना देना है वैलेंटाइन डे से।
Roses are red, violets are blue. You all love me, and I love you too. So this Valentine's Day, bring the love and the cheer, because Make America Great Again will win bigly this year.
Namaste, Jai Hind, Jai Bharat. You're tuned into this edition of The Right Stand with me, Anand Narsimhan. The 8th of February is a big day when Delhi election results will be declared. What will be verdict Delhi? Most pollsters have predicted its advantage the BJP, but the clear picture will be out on result day when the Election Commission declares what the mind of the Delhi voter has decided. Tune in to CNN News 18 for the accurate analysis of the verdict on